Well, it was last night when I was down here working on the carburetor and was getting this stuck with this is called an idle tube, and in an attempt to get this out, I inadvertently broke it. And I went online, looked at the parts breakdown, and on some websites the parts breakdown lists this with a call out number, but then when you go and look in the parts list, there's no part number at all. And then I think I did find one site that did have a part number and a description. They call this the idle tube, and lo and behold, not available. But there was a call out that seemed to indicate that it must have been available in one of the early carburetor repair kits. The problem is, all of the current carburetor repair kits that I could find for this carburetor do not include the idle tube. So I was kind of in a pickle there. So I started to look, and it's like the cheapest used carburetor I could find on eBay was like $40. And the problem was that, it's a used carburetor and it clearly said as is in the listing. I had no way of knowing whether or not all the parts were in that carburetor. And before I went through the trouble of contacting the seller to ask him whether or not it was a complete carburetor and try and get a better idea on the condition, I decided I'd come down here and take a closer look at the idle tube that I broke, or so I thought. And I looked at it under magnification, and as luck would have it, it turns out that this tube apparently is just a press fit into this part right here, and apparently all I ended up doing was accidentally pushed it out. So if I take this and put it on here, it actually seems like it stays on there really well. So I think that's going to be okay. I certainly hope so, because like I said, it doesn't look like I'm going to have any luck finding a replacement one. And as far as this goes over here, this being chewed up, it's going to be real difficult for me to get this out next time if I have to get it out again. But I do think I can grab it with the screwdriver well enough to screw it back in. So hopefully I got away with one there. Well, my cheap carburetor kits came in today, which is nice. Wasn't expecting these for a couple more days. Now in the photograph for this auction, I noticed that one of the bags was open. That one's sealed. This one's been torn open, and this one's sealed. You don't worry about whenever you see something like this, because it's quite possible that somebody opened this up to use something from the kit and then just put the rest of the kit back. So let's see if I can see what's in here. Alright, so clearly this is the gasket that attaches the carburetor, seals the carburetor to the intake. This is the float bowl gasket. These two gaskets here, I believe, are going to be the gaskets for that seal. Let's see, to the right here. I believe this gasket in here is actually going to be this one, and then I believe this one goes up in the top of that, sits on top of that screen when the screen's in position. So that leaves 3 mystery gaskets here. Would fully expect the little drain over here. That's probably this gasket here. Alright, thought about this. I think I figured it out. I identified all of these, and the last 3 to identify were these 3 right here. Well, this one is a perfect match for this washer that's on this little drain nut. Okay, this is the carb that I already almost completely reassembled. So I'm going to put this on there. This right here, the clue to this one is the fact that everything is here to take this whole top of the bowl assembly, this here, off. And this part that covers the screen that goes here, we've got the washers for that. The screw that goes into the top right here, okay, these screws that go into the top and hold these caps on, there's actually a washer on there. And that, I can almost guarantee, is going to be a perfect match for that. Oh, actually it's a little bit smaller. But I do believe that that's what that's for. So the only thing left is this little copper one right here. And I think that that's going to actually be, there's supposed to be a seal underneath this float seat, the needle seat there. So I think that that's what's going to go in there. So I'm going to take this, open this one up. I'm going to just need to clean that up a little bit better. I think on the early carburetors that they actually had a, yep, there it is, I can see it down in there, a little copper crush washer. But I think on the early ones they actually had an O-ring down here. And that obviously is not going to fly with modern E10 additives in the fuel. There it is right there. That little tiny copper crush washer gets replaced with a new one. Okay, now I have to verify the heights on this float. Alright, so there are two dimensions that we have to verify on this float assembly, this needle assembly, and the first one is 13/32 of an inch. So you could use if you have a machinist scale, which basically it's a ruler that has very small divisions on it and has 32 of an inch on it, and especially a lot of the machinist ones are really easy to read. I've got those, but since I have access to calipers, I'm going to avail myself of the caliper method. So the first thing you got to do is you got to convert 13/32 of an inch to decimal. Now, if you're a real crackerjack, you probably know off the top of your head that it's 0.4062. I cheated and I went over and used my decimal equivalent fraction decimal equivalent chart. I've actually got a couple of them here in the shop. It's a real handy thing to have. And if you don't have that, and if you're mathematically challenged, you might not realize that it's a simple matter of dividing the numerator by the denominator on any fraction to get your decimal. So just to whip it into your calculator, and 13 divided by 32 is 0.40625 to be exact, but we're not going to worry about that many decimal places out to the right. That's such a small amount. We can drop that and just go with the 0.4062. As a matter of fact, in this application we could probably just use the 0.406. So I'm converting the decimal because I'm going to use my my dial calipers. You could use vernier calipers if you have them. You could also use, of course, the easiest would be digital calipers, but I happen to have these handy. And every once in a while I like to switch things up a bit. So I'm going to set my dial calipers to 0.4062. That should do it right there. And I've got a little set screw right here that I can tighten. That'll keep that locked at 4.4062. And what I've got over here on the end is down this end here. Oh, piece of swarf. Anyways, so I got this little depth doohickey that sticks out here, and that's really handy for this kind of an operation. The first measurement I want to take is I'm going from this area down here, which is the shoulder of the casting that the seat screws into, going on a center line up right through the middle of that up to right here, this point on the top. Okay, so that should be 13/32. So if I just take my little depth thing and stick it on here, that actually looks pretty good. I could also use the inside, the jaws that are used for the inside measurement, and that looks great. So hopefully that's coming out fairly clearly. I watched online and saw somebody doing this measurement, and unfortunately they were holding the part the whole time, and there was a lot of shakiness. They didn't have a camera on a tripod, I don't believe, or maybe they did, but they were just moving around a lot. So hopefully that's showing up. Alright, I want to show this one more time because the angle I was holding this part at, I wasn't sure whether it looked like it showed up really well, but where the distances are that we're measuring, there's this this little shoulder right here of the casting where the seat screws into, right here. From here, we're measuring on a center line straight up through to here, the top of this little pan, so to speak, on this lever. Okay, what we would do is we would actually try and hold this on here, but it turns out these jaws right here, which are for inside dimensions, actually work out really well. So if I put that on there like that, and you can see that that's just, you know, I have to hold it kind of vertical to get a proper measurement. And when I hold it vertical, it kind of, quite honestly, it flops down a little bit. But that is measuring right where I want it at the 13/32. So the second measurement that I want to make is actually when this is inverted and it's in this position, and those two levers are hanging down freely. There's actually a space between this lever and this lever right here. This space right in here is actually supposed to be 1/4 of an inch. So I'll just quickly reset my my calipers. And 1/4 of an inch is decimal equivalent is 1 divided by 4, which is 0.250, 250 thousandths. So I got it set to 250. And again, I got to kind of hold this up. That's perfect. Let's see if I can't get a shot of that so you can see what I'm measuring. So what I'm looking at is I'm looking at the distance from this lever right where it's touching the needle to this edge right here when it's dropped down and gravity's holding it in that position. So if I take my calipers that are set and I hold them right in there, see that it's like almost a perfect fit. It's almost dead on. It's easier for me to see it this way, but then I kind of block it out with the camera. Block out the camera's view. Okay? And then that other measurement one more time, because this camera angle might actually be more friendly. Let's going to be from that shoulder. Oh, I gotta get a reset. Well, I think it already came out, so that one's good to go. All right, so I'm just finished installing the new bowl cover gasket, I should say. And again, I know this is installed correctly because this thicker part right here faces in. Also, looking down from the top, this circle is off center from the outer circle, and the circle should be closer to the body of the carburetor. And this is going to go on after I put the screen on and the cover, and then of course, just for safekeeping, I'm going to keep this this little gasket on that screw and put the screw right in there. That'll keep everything together. Okay. Until I'm ready to do the final installation back on the. Hey, there's a fly in here. Let's see if I can Mr. Miyagi this guy. Oh, Daniel-san. I missed him. Okay, so what was I saying? Oh yeah. So the only reason I'm not reinstalling this on the motor right now is because this is carb number 1. It's the topmost one. So if I put this one on, I'm going to have trouble with the linkages on the other ones. So I'm going to set this off to the side. Well, this is interesting. I just went to take out the bottom carburetor here so I can finish cleaning all the carburetors, and it will not come out because the bottom of this bowl on the carburetor won't clear this piece right here. So I'm actually going to have to take out this piece. It's almost like a drip tray. It appears that the job of this thing is that if the float were to stick on any of these carburetors and it were to start flooding gas out, that I guess it would dump the gas into this tray, and then there's a little trough right over here to funnel the gas down, and looks like it would just collect down the bottom here. I mean, I can't figure out why else they would have that there. But alright, let's get that out. I already loosened a couple of these screws, and it looks like, as luck would have it. Oh, wait a minute. Well, I might have been premature. I just realized that's right. I still have this cowling all loose, so if I tilt this down, I wonder if it'll clear. Nope, still won't. Okay. Now, with the carburetor rod, I should be able to locate where that screw. Oh, there it is. Alright. And I think what I'm going to do is I'll probably, before I put this carburetor back in, I'll probably grab the shop vac and clean out as much more stuff out of this pan as I can. Alright, I've already started disassembly of the final of the 3 carburetors. I'm not going to show the process of cleaning this one because I've already done it on the other ones. But I did want to just make a notation of where this needle screw adjustment is. Not quite 1.5 turns. It's at like at 9 o'clock. If it would come up to 10, it would be 1.5 turns. So a little under 1.5 turns fully seated. This carburetor looks like it had maybe a slight leak from here. I think somebody had this out and then just reused this little plastic crush washer. Got the same little sappy tar substance of bad gas being left in there as the other carbs did. Well, the only other interesting thing on this one is I noticed on the bottom here where the throttle shaft comes out, this is bent together and kind of bent. Alright, so the other thing about this bottom carburetor is I'm noticing that there does seem to be a lot more bad fuel resin all over everything. You know, this is where it looked like it was leaking a little bit right here, but then when I took this out, I took this plug out, you can see all of that stuff on there. And also on this little tube right here. See it right there? There's more buildup on these parts. This carburetor is just overall dirtier than the other one. So you can see there's more stuff down in there. More varnish. So I don't know. I guess one theory might be that maybe this carburetor, because of the way that it was harder to take this carburetor off, a little bit harder to remove it. Maybe the last time that somebody did some carburetor cleaning on this unit, they just removed the two top carburetors and left that bottom one in there. Either that, or just from gravity, for some reason, fuel's able to sit down in that one more. And as the fuel went bad, it just created more varnish in that one. Well, I was well into the reassembly after cleaning all the parts on this last carburetor, the carburetor on the bottom, and then I made the following observation. This needle and seat on this bottom carburetor is different than the other two. I happen to notice that on the bottom here you can see what looks like a rubber or neoprene ring or something. Okay. Also, the very tip of this appears to not be steel. It might be a rubberized tip. Regardless of whether or not this is steel and it's just got a coating on it, this would indicate to me that I think that down inside there, the seat that this seats on is not brass. I think it's this neoprene material or rubber material. And I think that I read somewhere that the early needles and seats were constructed this way,